Welcome to episode 5 of the COVID Chronicles. I wanted to talk to you about very special people that God introduced me to in the midst of my crisis. Jesus told his disciples he was sending them out as lambs among wolves. They carried no real valuable resources. They had no accommodations for their journey. They were traveling by faith. And Jesus told them that when they approached any village, they should seek out a person of peace. A person who ostensibly did not know the gospel, but though they did not know Christ or his gospel, nonetheless were prepared to befriend the disciples on their missionary journey. And Jesus said if they did not find such a person of peace, they were to shake the dust of their feet off and leave that village and move on to another. I was extremely grateful that God allowed me to meet persons of peace. In some cases, physically, in other cases, only virtually. But they were a lifeline to me during those 10 days of isolation. Let me remind you of the timeline. Thursday, July 15, I tested positive for COVID. It was confirmed by another test on the morning of Friday, July 16. So beginning with Thursday evening, the 15th, I was in isolation. I was able to communicate only digitally and from some great distance with anyone from that point going forward. But God began to arrange relationships that I will cherish for the rest of my life. I have already told you that God permitted me to establish a very healthy relationship with a representative with Ethiopian Airlines. And an unnamed individual at the American Consular Services at our embassy in Harare was very helpful to me as well. But other people would quickly be introduced to me. My team would leave on Saturday morning for the airport, and I would receive a communication indicating that there was a doctor who might be able to assist me. I've already explained to you how that this doctor arranged for a young associate to come and examine me, to secure an x-ray in my behalf, and how that doctor wrote a very helpful statement for the authorities in Zimbabwe. I would also be introduced to others who would facilitate my concerns. I reached out to a longtime friend. She was a member of our church in Manassas, Virginia, when I was privileged to serve there. But most of her adult life has been as a non-government contractor in Africa. Currently, they live in the Congo, but they have connections throughout the continent. I reached out to Jana and explained my situation. She was quickly praying for me and reaching out to others who were nearer to where I was located. Not very long afterward, she communicated with me that a longtime friend worked for Air France and lived in Zimbabwe and knew all the people that I was communicating with and might be of service to me. By Tuesday, the day after my guide left and I was all alone, I was in direct communication with this friend that I discovered not only worked for Air France, but actually worked for Ethiopian Airlines as well. He was very helpful in communicating with some of the people that I was already in contact with and going some distance to ensure the situation worked out in a very positive and healthy fashion for me. I certainly would not have known anyone employed by Ethiopian Airlines in the nation of Zimbabwe, but a friend from some time ago made that contact in my behalf. He proved a person of peace to me. Longtime friends who previously served as missionaries in a neighboring African nation contacted one of our missionaries there in Zimbabwe. She was some great distance removed from me, and visiting with one another was not a real possibility. But she began to pray, and she began to offer counsel to me that was invaluable, considering how little I really knew about how to behave myself and conduct myself in this unusual African nation. Another person of peace. I was put in contact with one of our missionaries who was literally in the process of leaving the country. He was literally in the process of bringing his family back to the United States for a different ministry when he found out about my plight. And while in transit, he reached out to me and began to encourage me. And he made contact with the pastor of a Baptist church in Victoria Falls, where I was located. Brother Newman Hove, a big man, big African man, a well-educated man, a well-experienced man, a godly man. He found out about my situation, and by Thursday, we had made arrangements for him to come and visit me. Of course, we were socially distanced. We sat on the patio behind my lodge unit. He sat on one end of the patio. I sat on the other end of the patio. We both wore masks throughout what must have been about 30 minutes together. Oh, but the joy of fellowship that we did share. He was a blessing and encouragement to me. I saw many people each day online, virtually, but very few people did I actually see and have the opportunity to speak with over a week and a half. But this pastor took time out of a busy schedule, and he came and spent it with me. I will never be able to repay him for the encouragement that he offered to me that day. Oh, and could that brother pray? When he went to pray for me, I heard a man cry out to God as I have seldom heard a preacher pray for another preacher. He was an angel sent to me for my moment of difficulty and distress. It's not good for man to be alone. We're built for community. We need relationships with other people. Iron needs to sharpen iron, and the countenance of one needs to sharpen the countenance of another. And there was on my patio another person of peace. Someone God introduced to me on that occasion to buoy me, to buttress me, to encourage me in the midst of my difficulty. God is so good. He is so very faithful. He is never without a witness. He is never without a voice. Everywhere He is, and everywhere His people are as well. They are salt in an unsavory society in every place. They are light in a darkened world in every place. And salt to my soul and light to my spirit were these people who came into my experience across these days. They were persons of peace. I may never see them again in this life. I had to say, upon departing from each one of these contacts, whether it was digitally or in the case of that pastor, face to face. It's here, there, or in the air. We simply do not know. But I know that on those days, they were persons of peace to me. On that Sunday of my isolation, that young doctor was a person of peace to me. That older doctor who wrote my report was a person of peace to me. Throughout the entire process, Sam at Ethiopian Airlines was a person of peace to me. An unnamed individual at our embassy was a person of peace to me. Ramona, our missionary in Bulawayo, was a person of peace to me. Tom, back here in the United States, veteran missionary, was a person of peace to me. And Pastor Hove was a person of peace to me. God is so kind as to not require us to take these bumpy rides alone. He gives us persons of peace. And that's today's COVID Chronicles. I hope you're back for the next episode.